Hello everyone and welcome to another unboxing. This time we have, as you can quite clearly see, it is not an Android for once, even though it's from the same company. It is a Figma, and it is, to be specific, the Red Pokémon, or the character Red, not the game Red, Figma, which comes with the little Pokémon you can see. Let's have a quick look at the box before we get into it and actually show the figure off. Some nice showings of poses on the back there. And this is the first, probably in a terrifying downward spiral, of Figmas that I've ever gotten. So I'm very intrigued to open this one up and see how I like this. So let's get into that box. So a quick little thing is this is something I've not come across before. As I said, first time I've had a Figma. You get a little DI stage, is it called? A little thing that you can pop out. I've never seen this before, but it's kind of cool, I guess. It's an interesting way to know. I suppose maybe if you've got a legit one, I don't really have to worry about that right now because of the fact that I've got this as it's come out, but that's something cool that I didn't know that came with these, or maybe it's something new that comes with them. Anyways, back to getting you out the box. Okay, so we've got them out the box, and so let's start with first something that I've seen before but is a first for me. You get a nice little Ziploc bag to, well, basically keep any bits in, which is something I'm going to keep comparing them to them because that's what I unbox a lot of. But to Nendroids, that's something that I definitely wish that they came with. But of course, it also comes with the stand and lots of extra hand pieces, and I think, is that an extra neck piece maybe? Or it might be an extra wrist piece, I'm not sure. But we'll get to those in a second. Most important thing is it comes with a bit of paper. Oh, look at that. It's got so much Japanese writing. And it basically tells you how everything works. How to put on the backpack, how to change the head. Stuff that's pretty obvious, but at the same time not the worst thing in the world. There's all the pieces. It's actually kind of useful in its own way. And yes, you don't just get Red, you get a little Squirtle, a little Bulbasaur, and a little Charmander, which are really, really nice. Like, I've got, after all the comparisons, I've got to the side. They may be the Chinese knockoff versions, but you know, doesn't really matter in terms of what they look like. The three that you got with the Nendroid Red. Now, in a way, you could kind of call these like the beta to these figures. And you'll notice immediately, I'll do a side-by-side comparison in a second, but you'll notice immediately that they're all in much more dynamic poses with the Figma, whereas with the Nendroid ones, they're kind of just quite static. They're a little bit cutesier, which does make sense given the stylistic way that Nendroids work. But I thought that was at least a fun comparison to make. But I'll show you a side-by-side of them now. So, as you can see, we have a much more dynamic pose for Squirtle with the Figma version than the kind of not really much of anything pose. Also, its head's a little bit more rounded, which looks a bit weird on the Nendroid one, whereas it looks more sort of oval, and it looks a bit more correct with the Figma version, although it is an awful lot less stable, which in comparison, this one's, well, it's not much better, but it's at least a tiny bit better. But I suppose that's the sacrifice you make for a more dynamic pose. Next up we have Bulbasaur, which again is way nicer and, well, more dynamic really. So this one obviously harder to knock over than the Squirtle, and I suppose technically it has two poses, though obviously that's the more correct pose. It has a bit of a look to its face on that, whereas that it's more, well, it's a bit derpy still, but it's still quite, well, active. You're starting to get the idea with these. And last but not least, my personal favourite, which is Charmander. And of all of them, like, outside of this being my personal favourite, of all of them, I think Charmander's is genuinely the nicest figure that comes with the Figma. Like, I absolutely adore the pose that it's in, because it's kind of an action pose, but it's also quite a cutesy pose. Also, the tail looks like amazing. Again, a much more cutesy, rounded look for the Nendroid version, which it still looks a little off, but I don't know, in a way you could think of these as like that the Nendroid one is when it's first hatched, and then the Figma one is after it's grown up a little bit, if you really wanted to think of something like that. But anyways, most important thing, the reason everyone's really here, let's get to Figma Red himself. So yes, let's get to the real reason why everyone's buying this. The real reason you're buying the red Figma is to get the red Figma, which is a really nice figure, and it's like just outside of the whole, well, what is the Figma like? Just the figure itself is really nice. The joints aren't super obvious, so from a distance you can have it posed, and for example, if I were to turn that arm around, you wouldn't see the joint at all. You pretty much wouldn't see any joints, and that's really nice. As I showed with the bit of paper, you pop the arms off and you can put the backpack on. You might not necessarily need the stand, but I always like using them just for the extra stability. So, just for fun, let's show off a couple of different poses, and we'll also at the end show off what the actual movement of the figure and all the joints are like. And just for fun, while I'm changing some of the poses, I thought I'd show off the weird way that you swap out the faces in this. For this figure, you take off the hat and make him have this really weird look to him, this look. And you take off the face, it looks even weirder. And you just boop. Let's get that right, because you don't want to put the face, or the hat rather, on wrong. And simple as that. I imagine characters who don't have hats might be a little different. Anyways, to the poses. So you can have something like an active catching pose. Of course, you can have your standard pose that I had before. You can even have some more active battle type poses. And if you want a little fun, you can even get Red in his own way to try some of the interesting Z poses from Sun and Moon. Although I wouldn't say his hands fit perfectly for the flat. It looks like he's more trying to center his chakra. But, you know, that's the whole fun of poseable figures. Also, that one at least gets to stand up. The Ash figure, never gonna stand up in that pose. Never in a million years. Which did it better. And as a tiny little thing before we finish up, I found it quite interesting that in the case of these, the Pokeball literally just sits in the hand, like no pegs or anything. It's interesting, but I feel like as soon as the fingers get a bit loose, that's not going to stay in there. You see, there's this hand which is also for it. Let's take it off there. And already that is super loose. I mean, I know that that hand's meant to be the one where he's holding it, but it's still loose as heck. Which, in cases like this, I kind of prefer when you have pegs and things like that. Oh, and off that Pokeball rolls. So let's take this off this. As for the posing, so you have the full circle swivel on the arms, about that up, because it's on a ball joint. Fair amount of movement on the elbow. The wrists, there's a little movement, enough from a wrist, as you might imagine. The neck is also on a ball joint. The only complaint I have is that his hair, let's zoom right into that, see if I can get a good clear look at that. His hair, as you can see, it does kind of catch on the back of his, well, collar. It's alright because for the most part you're not going to be moving it around a lot, but it is something to consider that you don't like accidentally like really force it or anything. But it's a good range of movement on the head when you're not getting it stuck. Looks a bit weird if you look at it and see the actual joint, but you're not very likely to actually see that. Ooh. Ah, it's better. Let's actually pop the arm off. Pop the arm off. And let's take this off. So as you can see, it's just the same sort of connector as on the actual stand. So yes, as you can see, it's simply just a ball joint that's been popped on and off. As you can also probably quite likely see there, there's a lot of places where the outfit has been cut just to make more freedom of movement, so that whatever pose you decide to put him in, it doesn't look all that unnatural. But anyways, you have the stomach move, not too much, but not that bad. Oh, and yes, if you couldn't tell, it's in certain places quite spongy material, because that's where it's going to be bending the most. Whereas like the pants, they're like fully solid. Knees, standard human knee. Looks a bit weird on the back, but again, you're not really going to be looking at the back. Nice designs on the shoes, where there's a little bit of movement, not a lot, but I mean, what do you expect on a shoe? See, it's getting stuck there. And obviously waist movement, and I think that's about everything. You can totally rotate the legs as well. But you want to be careful with that so that you don't accidentally like wrench them out of place. And as you can see there, he does stand by himself without the stand. I imagine with the backpack on it might be a bit more weighted though. But it is possible. So yes, that is the red Figma. And I'm really quite happy with it. And I'm going to really enjoy all the different poses I can put it in. And displaying it. And, you know, the general stuff. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this look at the red Figma. And I guess I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.